Hello, here's a walkthrough of how to run one of the Flask applications. The Flask applications are basically web applications written in Python, and they allow you to call the machine learning model from a browser. So after you've gone through the lessons, you can go back to the project view of the in PyCharm and look at the train and app folders. So starting with the train folder, you will have a file called train.py, and this is the workshop training script. The goal of the workshop is to fill in the answers and then run training. After you've trained the model, you will be able to run it from the Flask application. So let's go through this step by step. Step 1, in your groups, go through the training.py, find the places that you need to fill in the answers. You can do that by searching for to do, and you should find one or two to-dos to fill in. In this case, the places that you need to fill in are already marked with answer. So for example, you should specify some input dimension, some output dimension for the embedding based on your understanding of the embedding layer. Fill in some units for the LSTM, and so on and so forth. After you've done that, your file should be able to run. So I'm going to demonstrate running the complete solution. So I have a completed solution which you don't have, and I'm simply going to go to the terminal to run it. So in this case, you can also go to run and run, click run here to run your train.py, or you can do the manual way. You can go to the train folder and run your solution. In your case, you will be running python train.py because that is the file that you have. I'm going to run the solution because I've already completed this. And once you run the solution, you will see that the dataset will start training. You'll get some output, it will start training, and after it's finished training, you will see a learning curve show up. For example, my learning curve from a previous run will look something like this, but your learning curve may look differently depending on how you set up your model. After training is done, the model will be saved to, using model checkpoint, to an lstm.h5 file. The model directory is actually specified up top, which is in app demo model. So you can find it after you train the model under app demo model, and you should see two files, one containing the trained neural network model, and then the other one is some metadata that we saved so that we can interpret the model. More details on the artifacts can be found here by looking at inspecting what save artifacts is doing. For example, you can see that save artifacts is actually saving the vocabulary of the vectorizer, the configuration of the vectorizer. It will be used to reconstruct the vectorizer. It's also saving the label encoder so that we can use it from the Flask app to decode the prediction labels. So these are called artifacts and the model. These will be loaded by our Flask application. After training the model, we're now ready to run the Flask application. To run the Flask application, we will go back to the app demo folder. We will no longer be using the train folder, but we will be starting the app from this folder. Before you do that, create a file inside app with the following settings. So specify the Flask app to be run.py, the Flask environment to be development, and the Flask run port to be 8080. The Flask env file is a way for you to specify settings in a data-driven manner without changing the code. So this basically says the main application starting point will be run.py. We are going to run in the development environment rather than production, and our port will be 8080 when we go access the web browser. After you've created this file, you can now run the Flask application. We simply do flask run from within the app folder. Note that it's not within the demo folder, but within the app folder, because we are calling run.py. If everything goes well, if you have Flask installed, then this will work. If you get an error that Flask is not installed, you need to install Flask. Or you can use pip install requirements.txt. So here's how you can do pip install requirements.txt. This is documented in the README. So when we run the Flask app, you'll notice that the port number has been specified here. This is actually localhost 8080. You can click on this and it will open the browser window with our model loaded in the backend. So now we are going to try to test this application. This is a sentiment prediction, so it thinks I'm terrified.